Friends, tonight, the story I'm about to tell you is not an ordinary story. This is the story of a man, Ali, who set out to find his dead brother, and along the way, reached a place so desolate, so silent, that it felt like even time had stopped breathing. There were no towns, no roads, only silence, cold wind, and a frozen lake stretching into darkness. They say that lake wasn't ordinary. Locals believe that beneath its ice, something was alive, something that never slept. Ali's only goal was to find his brother Ehsan's body. But that night, what he found was not a body. The plane cut through the clouds, descending into a world of white silence. Dr. Nora Flint pressed her face to the window. Below, she saw nothing but snow, endless, untouched snow stretching to the horizon. The pilot's voice cracked over the intercom, calm but distant. Welcome to Coldwater, Alaska. Current temperature, -27. Coldwater, the town she swore she'd never see again. The place where her brother, Eli, disappeared 6 years ago. The airport was little more than a shack on a frozen plain. Wind howled through the gaps in the wooden walls. A single truck waited outside, the same kind her father used to drive. As Nora stepped into the biting air, her breath turned to crystals. The silence was unnatural. It wasn't the silence of peace, but of something watching. The town itself felt suspended in time. Wooden houses leaned under the weight of frost. Street lamps flickered weakly through a pale fog. No one smiled. When she asked about Eli, the locals looked away, mumbling excuses. No one by that name here, ma'am. But Eli's handwriting was carved into the old dock by the frozen lake. She knelt down, brushing away the snow, reading the words scratched into the wood. The lights are still here. That night, as she unpacked inside her father's old cabin, the generator hummed and the wind scraped against the windows. Nora stared out at the lake, now a vast sheet of glassy ice. And then she saw them, faint, swirling orbs glowing deep beneath the frozen surface. Blue, alive, moving like souls trapped underwater. For a long moment, she couldn't breathe. Then, from somewhere inside the darkness, a whisper rose, muffled, fragile, and familiar. Nora. She froze, because that voice was Eli's. The truck crawled up the winding road, its headlights barely cutting through the mist. Frost Hill stood like a graveyard of trees, tall, dark silhouettes bending beneath the weight of ice. At the top, Nora saw it, her childhood home. The wooden house looked the same as it had in her memories, only quieter, older, and somehow still alive. She parked, stepped out, and the snow crunched under her boots with a hollow echo. As she approached the door, the faint sound of wind chimes drifted from the porch, except there were no chimes. Only rusted chains swaying in the cold. Inside, the air smelled of wet wood and dust. Every surface carried a thin layer of frost. Her breath fogged the room as she walked through the hallway, past family photos still hanging on the walls. In one frame, she and Eli stood beside the frozen lake, their faces half-faded, like the picture itself had tried to forget them. The house groaned as she unpacked her bags upstairs. The floorboards trembled slightly, as if something heavy moved below. She paused, listened. Footsteps. Slow, wet, dragging, coming from the basement. Her pulse raced. She grabbed a flashlight and descended the creaking stairs. The smell of damp earth grew stronger. At the bottom, she found puddles spreading across the concrete floor and droplets of water dripping from the wooden beams above. But the house had no running water. No pipes. She followed the trail of moisture to an old trapdoor near the wall. Something beneath it thumped once, soft, deliberate. Then silence. Nora whispered, Eli. The flashlight flickered. The trapdoor shivered once more. From beneath the floor came a faint knocking, rhythmic and patient, like someone trapped underneath was tapping for her attention. 3 knocks. Then 2. Then 1. And finally, a whisper that froze her blood. Don't open it, Nora. Snow fell in soft, endless sheets over the town. The morning light was gray, and everything looked frozen in time. Even the crows seemed to glide slower here. Nora sat in the small-town library, surrounded by yellowed maps, old newspapers, and the faint buzz of a flickering lamp. She'd spent all night listening to the knocking beneath her floor. It had stopped just before dawn. Now, she needed answers. The town's history book was thin, barely 50 pages, but something about it was off. Coldwater, it said, was founded in 1975 after a dam collapse erased the previous mining town. No photos, no survivors listed. Only one line circled in faded pen. The old town lies beneath the lake. Her heart pounded. Eli had been obsessed with this story before he vanished. She remembered his late-night calls, his excitement when he'd said, "I found something under the ice, Nora." Something glowing. She unfolded an old, water-stained map and froze. The location of their current town overlapped exactly with the area marked Old Coldwater Mines. Downstairs, the librarian, a frail woman with pale eyes, approached her slowly. "You shouldn't be digging into that," she murmured. "They don't like it when you remember." Nora frowned. "Who doesn't?" The woman's eyes shifted toward the window, where the lake shimmered faintly in the distance. "The one's still down there," she whispered and walked away. Outside, snow whipped across the road. The lake called to her, silent, glittering, endless. She trudged to the dock, knelt, and brushed away the ice. Beneath the surface, she saw movement, faint shadows drifting below the frozen glass. She blinked. For a second, she saw houses, rooftops, chimneys, lights, and a hand, pale and still, pressed against the ice from underneath. Etched beside it, in a frozen line of air bubbles, were the words, "The town below is still breathing." That night, the storm grew stronger. Wind howled through the forest like a wounded animal, and the lake moaned beneath its frozen skin. Inside the cabin, Nora sat by the fireplace, flipping through Eli's old notebook. The pages were warped with water stains, the handwriting jagged and desperate. Every page carried sketches of tunnels, strange symbols, and notes like "light under pressure behaves like breath," and the miners were never recovered. At the bottom of the final page, in trembling ink, Eli had written, "If I don't come back, follow the shadows." The words echoed in her mind as she stepped outside. Her flashlight beam cut through the flurries of snow, landing on the lake's edge. The ice shimmered faintly, pulsing like veins of light just beneath the surface. She crouched low, her breath fogging the air. Something moved down there. At first, it looked like dark fish drifting beneath the ice, until one of them stopped, stood upright, and turned its face toward her. It wasn't a fish. It was a man. His eyes glowed faintly blue, his mouth open in a silent scream. Behind him, more figures appeared, silhouettes of miners, still wearing their helmets, lanterns flickering dimly from their belts. Their shadows stretched upward, merging with hers on the ice. For a heartbeat, she felt them breathing with her. Then one shadow detached. It crawled across the ice, long and slow, until it reached her boots. Nora staggered back, heart hammering. A crack split the silence. The ice beneath her feet fractured like glass, forming a web of glowing lines. From somewhere deep below, a low rumble answered. It wasn't just the wind. The ice was breathing back. Suddenly, a hand burst through the crack, pale, trembling, reaching for her ankle. She screamed, stumbling backward. The flashlight fell, its beam dancing wildly over the frozen surface. The lights beneath the ice flickered faster, like something was waking up. By morning, Nora's fear turned into obsession. She needed to know what her brother had truly found before he disappeared. The old map led her to the far edge of Coldwater, where a decaying research facility stood, half buried in snow, its steel walls corroded by time. A faded government logo still clung to the main gate. CWARL, Coldwater Aquatic Research and Light Division. Inside, the air was heavy with mold, and the faint hum of machinery still running on backup power. She followed a trail of wet footprints leading deeper into the corridor, fresh, human, and recent. The control room looked frozen in the past. Computers flickered with static, and on one monitor, a looping video played. Eli, her brother, standing beside a tank of glowing water. He spoke into the camera, voice shaking. The miners didn't drown. They changed. The light, it's inside them now. Nora froze. Behind Eli, something moved in the water, a dark figure pressing against the glass, its outline human but distorted. She backed away, breathing fast. The door behind her creaked open, not by wind, but by something stepping in. Footsteps echoed. Then a voice, low and calm. "You shouldn't have come here, Miss Hale." A tall man in a tattered lab coat appeared. His badge read Dr. Vance. He smiled faintly, his eyes unnaturally bright. The lake chose your brother. It chooses who it wants to keep. Nora tried to run, but he stepped closer, whispering, "You hear it too, don't you? The hum beneath the ice." And then she did. A deep vibration, pulsing through the walls, into her bones. From every pipe, every vent, droplets began to fall, glowing faintly blue. The light had found her. That night, Nora drove to the lake one last time. The storm had cleared. The moonlight painted everything silver, the trees, the snow, the house on Frost Hill. She stood at the dock, Eli's notebook in her hands. The words glowed faintly under the moonlight. When the ice breaks, follow the voice. The surface of the lake was no longer still. Tiny ripples shimmered outward, though there was no wind. Beneath the frozen crust, she could see movement, a shape circling slowly, patiently. Then a voice. Soft. Familiar. Nora. Her eyes widened. It was Eli. She knelt, pressed her palm against the ice. "Eli, where are you?" "Below," the voice answered. "You have to see it, Nora. It's beautiful down here." Cracks began to form, glowing blue beneath her hands. The ice hissed, melting in perfect circles. She could see him now, standing just beneath the surface, eyes pale, skin translucent. He smiled, reaching upward. The light spread from his fingertips, wrapping around her reflection like threads of fire. Nora tried to pull back, but her reflection didn't move. It stared at her, smiling with Eli's same haunting calm. Then it reached out, through the ice, and grabbed her wrist. Cold fire surged through her veins. Her body stiffened, vision fracturing into blinding white light. When the storm cleared the next morning, the dock was empty. Only the notebook remained, soaked, frozen open to the last page. In fresh ink, someone had written one new line beneath Eli's notes. "The lake has two lights now." 3 days after Nora vanished, the storm ended. Coldwater became silent again, too silent. But something had changed. The town's radios, televisions, and even cell phones began picking up faint signals, bursts of static that came and went like whispers in the wind. At first, people thought it was interference from the weather, but soon, they began to hear words within the noise. Soft, distorted, human. "Don't look at the lake. She's still here. The light isn't gone." One night, a young technician named Ryan stayed late at the local power station to investigate. His screen glitched every few minutes, showing flashes of underwater scenes, shadows, tunnels, faces pressed against glass. Then, in one flicker, he saw her, Nora, her face pale, hair floating in the dark water, lips moving silently. Ryan froze. "Nora," he whispered. She blinked slowly, her eyes glowing faintly blue. "Help me," she mouthed. "It's spreading." The lights in the room dimmed. Static surged. Every monitor began showing the same image, the lake, rippling as if something beneath it was breathing again. The sound of rushing water filled the room, though everything around him was dry. Ryan grabbed his radio, but the signal turned to a deep, vibrating hum. Then, a voice, calm, cold, spoke through every speaker at once. "The water remembers everyone who listens." In the final seconds before the power cut, Ryan turned toward the window. Outside, the lake was glowing. Not blue this time, but red. Coldwater awoke to a strange morning. The snow had melted overnight, even though the air was below freezing. The lake was no longer frozen. It churned like something alive, the surface shimmering with colors no one could name. Ryan led a small rescue team to the dock, hoping to find Nora or at least understand the signals. As they approached, every compass, every watch, every digital screen began to flicker. The air smelled like metal and rain. He looked into the water and saw movement. Dozens of human figures drifted just beneath the surface, their faces peaceful, their bodies glowing faintly from within. At the center of them stood Nora, alive, but changed. Her skin shimmered like glass. Her eyes glowed with the same blue fire Eli once had. She spoke without opening her mouth, her voice echoing inside their minds. "It's awake now. The lake is no longer sleeping." The water began to rise, rippling out in perfect waves that reached the shoreline but never spilled over. Beneath the team's boots, frost formed words across the wooden dock. "Join us." Ryan screamed for everyone to run, but one by one, the others froze, their shadows stretching toward the lake, pulling them forward like invisible hands. He turned to flee, but Nora was suddenly behind him. Her face calm, her voice a whisper. "Don't be afraid. It doesn't hurt." Her fingers brushed his cheek. For an instant, he saw everything. The miners, the lab, Eli, the lights spreading through the water like veins of fire. Then the lake went silent again. When the sun rose the next day, Coldwater was gone. Every house, every road, swallowed beneath a mirror of still, shining water. Only one sign remained floating above the surface. Coldwater, population, 2. Weeks passed. The world outside Coldwater had started noticing strange phenomena. Satellite images showed the town completely gone, replaced by an unnatural lake whose surface shimmered like glass. Scientists called it a geothermal illusion. But those who came close enough saw something else. Reflections in the water didn't match reality. Clouds twisted in patterns unseen in the real sky. And sometimes, when the wind stopped, faces appeared beneath the surface, staring upward. A government team arrived, led by Dr. Adrian Wells, a hydrologist with a reputation for uncovering the unexplainable. As they set up camp on the shore, all radio signals vanished. The air was dense, electric, like a storm waiting to break. That night, as they monitored the water's surface, the readings went wild. Temperatures spiked, light levels surged, and sound waves formed repeating patterns, a voice. Below is above. The reflection is the truth. The team looked over the edge of their boat. Beneath them, the lake wasn't showing their faces anymore. It showed Coldwater, perfectly preserved, glowing beneath the surface. Houses, lights, even the people, all moving, living, mirroring them. Suddenly, lightning struck the water, but there was no thunder. The sky itself flickered like a screen, revealing another world beyond the clouds, a flooded sky, where people walked upside down, their reflections dripping into the lake below. Dr. Wells whispered, trembling, "It's not a mirror. It's a door." And before anyone could react, the water rose upward, not splashing, but climbing, reaching toward the sky like a wall of liquid glass. The reflection and the real world began to merge, the boundary between above and below slowly fading away. The world ended quietly, not with explosions or chaos, but with stillness. Days after the Coldwater incident, satellite feeds showed something impossible, the entire region reflecting sunlight upward like a massive mirror. Cities miles away began to see duplicate skylines hovering above them, ghost versions of buildings, clouds, even people. In one distant city, a journalist named Lena Cross discovered something terrifying. When she looked into her bathroom mirror one morning, her reflection blinked a second later than she did. She tried again. Blink. Then blink. And then the reflection smiled, but she didn't. Panicking, she smashed the mirror, but her reflection remained, hovering in the broken shards, whispering, "The light remembers you too." Across the world, reports multiplied, reflections moving out of sync, water glowing in streets, puddles showing cities that no longer existed. The phenomenon spread like a quiet infection. In the final broadcast before the power grid failed, Dr. Wells appeared on screen, pale and shaking. "Coldwater wasn't consumed," he said. "It expanded. The lake is everywhere now. Every mirror, every drop of water, it's connected." As he spoke, the broadcast feed began to flicker. Behind him, a shadow moved, a woman, her eyes faintly blue, her voice echoing faintly through the static. It was Nora. She placed her hand on the glass, whispering softly, "We're not gone. We're reflected." The screen went black, and in the silence that followed, every mirror, every window, every still puddle across the world shimmered once, showing Coldwater, glowing beneath an endless flooded sky. The last line of text faded onto the screen. "The lights beneath Coldwater. The end." If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to my channel, and turn on the bell icon, so that when I bring the next terrifying story, you'll be the first to hear it. I'm your name or channel name, and I'll be back soon with another story, one filled with fear, silence, and a truth waiting just for you. Until then, stay quiet, but never stay alone.